One.
Welcome. Tucker Carlson had his debut on Twitter, and I think he broke two records. The one is the record for views. I don't know if there's been any other piece of content in YouTube with so many views in so little time. By now, it has something like 75 million, and the way it counts views, you know that it probably has actually more. The second record that I think he broke is how many lies you can fit within 10 minutes or even less time. So this is what we're going to try to figure out. We're going to do a commentary on the talk and see what type of lies he's feeding his audience. And I'm using constantly the term lies because, as you will see, these cannot be honest mistakes. If I tell you that today it's December and it's Sunday, it's probably not a lie. I have something else in mind. With me on this, I'm going to have James Valliant. Thank you very much, James, for being here. So without further delay, let's go.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. This morning, it looks like somebody blew up the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine. The rushing wall of water wiped out entire villages, destroyed a critical hydropower plant, and as of tonight, puts the largest nuclear reactor in Europe in danger of melting down.
Pause. So already from the get-go, it puts the biggest nuclear plant in Europe in danger of meltdown. If you spend 5 seconds on the internet checking if this is the case, you find that no, there's no case that this is going to go on meltdown. It took something like 4 seconds. I mean, don't want to bore you with why. It's in terms of how many of the reactors are operating. It's in a war-torn area, so everything has been taken into account, and the nuclear factory is operating below capacity, so there's not going to be any meltdown. So, James, we begin, and immediately you see here's something that comes out of out of nowhere. But anyway, let's continue because more important stuff is coming.
So if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic, it was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to Crimea.
Stop. So this dam was built in the 50s. How could it be built by the Russian government? So this was built by Soviet Union. Now, how you can believe that something that was built by Soviet Union is automatically built by Russia? Incidentally, at that time, the leader of Soviet Union was someone who was from Ukraine. Not that this matters. But James, what about the other stuff that it was basically Russian? Everything which is in a territory that is controlled by the Russian army today is Russian.
Well, it's clear what Tucker's motive is. He has no problem with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and he's happy to hand them over as much as will buy peace. He has an end outcome that he wants, and he'll get there by whatever means necessary. That's what it's signaled to me already. By that logic, so much of what is in Ukraine would be, you could say, is Russian built, Russian this, Russian that. Well, they were part of the Soviet Empire. And anything that happened or was built during that time should not be credited to Russia. That's exactly the way Putin wants us to believe. Oh, yeah, this was in Russia's old sphere of influence. Russia, we really are the same people. We really should be there in Ukraine, Tucker is feeding that line.
By that logic, by the way, also the big dam in Egypt should belong to Russia because it was built by the help of Soviet Union. It was Khrushchev's big gift to Nasser. Therefore, it's basically Russian property. Okay, so we have already 2 lies in the first 20 seconds. Let's see, because if we go by that pace, we're going to be here for a long time. Let's go on.
40 years, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Blowing up the dam may be bad for Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more. And for precisely that reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it. In December, the Washington Post quoted a Ukrainian general saying his men had fired American-made rockets at the dam's floodgate as a test strike. So really, once the facts start coming in, it becomes much less of a mystery what might have happened to the dam. Any fair person would conclude.
There are no facts that are coming in. I don't know why he's saying this. As the facts are coming in, it's becoming clear. There's zero facts. We have absolutely zero knowledge of what is happening. If I tell you that I think Russia did it, or if I tell you that I think Ukraine did it, I'm speaking out of my, I don't remember what's the phrase. But
a different part of your body than your mouth.
A different part. But yeah. You shouldn't take me seriously. If I tell you that there are facts coming in and it shows this, it shows you have no idea what I'm talking about. Incidentally, he brings up that some months ago, Ukrainians bombed it. Would it be stupid to plan to sabotage the dam and then go to an American newspaper and say, hey, we're going to do it in some months. Now we're just doing a test. Now, I'm no expert in war sabotage. I've read stuff that says that probably this is not artillery thrown from away. It makes more sense for the sabotage to happen from, let's say, within the dam. But the answer is, I don't know. And because I don't want to bullshit you, I'll just stop at that. I don't know.
Amen, brother. And you really see the whole motive that Tucker has here from the outset. We don't really know, but he's perfectly willing to assign with a high degree of confidence the responsibility here. But by the way, Ukraine were the victims of an invasion. If, in fact, they blew up this dam and they had some tactical reason, I don't know what their tactical motive would be, but if they did have some tactical reason to do so, to push back Russia in this invasion, then okay, do it, good, yes. If they wanted to attack Moscow with drones, yes, hooray. What's wrong with that? But as you point out, in the first instance, we don't know. He's willing to assign responsibility for the dam being destroyed without any evidence whatever. We have to say, I don't know at this stage. And his willingness to make a strong stand with such confidence tells you what his ultimate motive is.
And we promised people we will review the video. So I don't want to get on a tangent on the history that Soviet Union had on false flag operation. If anyone wants, I can mention it at the end. Like some of them are so badly executed that in retrospect, it's absolutely comical, although back then they were tragic because they costed life. Let's go with the video, dear producer.
Probably blew it up, just as you would assume they blew up Nord Stream, the Russian natural gas pipeline, last fall. And in fact, the Ukrainians did do that, as we now know. It's not like
we know nothing of the kind. We don't. Again, the truth is we don't know who blew up the Nord Stream. There are theories, there are whistleblowers, people who have heard stuff. The truth is we don't know. We don't know who blew up Nord Stream.
Is that the CIA was aware that someone was going to blow up the pipeline. Who blew up that pipeline, we still do not know with clarity. He's making an assumption. Again, if there was a tactical reason for Ukraine to get rid of that pipeline, I say more power to them. They were the victims of an invasion. On the other hand, we don't know. And his confidence in being able to say that we can assume this with a degree of probability seems to be giving away what his real motive is to me, as I say.
And notice that also, I think we talked about it at that time. This pipeline was not even operative. So it's because all the conservatives, when it happened, who, again, probably they don't have a Google service on their computer. They were saying, hi, Europe is going to freeze this winter. They didn't even bother to check, are we actually taking gas from this pipeline? Anyway, let's go.
Vladimir Putin is anxious to wage war on himself. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Mr. and Mrs. Cable News consumer. Vladimir Putin is exactly that sort of man, the sort of man who'd shoot himself to death in order to annoy you. We know this from the American media, which wasted no time this morning.
He's saying this sarcastically, but it's actually true. There are at least two people who are sanctioned voices, approved voices of the Russian regime that are absolutely nutters. And they say it's not I would rather have a nuclear war where everything is destroyed rather than we lose face in Ukraine. Both Alexander Dugin has said so, and we've done programs, episodes on Dugin, both on the Daily Objective and in New Idea Live. And Solovyov, that guy you see in Russian TV, has time and again said that we shouldn't be afraid to have a nuclear war with the West. These are actually people who believe that dying is okay and it's no big deal if it is about pissing off our enemies. So Tucker would say this, but ironically.
Oh, yeah, I mean, he's assuming benevolent sanity on the part of the Russians. It's absolutely extraordinary. But again, it's the mask slipping and revealing his motive here.
Let's go.
In accusing the Russians of sabotaging their own infrastructure. Bill Kristol, the man who once told us that Saddam...
Have Russians ever sabotaged their own infrastructure or their own army in order to gain political points or in order to gain their interest? Where this was the history of the 30s in Soviet Union, in the pogroms in the army. But more specifically, go and Google people. How did the imperialistic invasion of Soviet Union happen in Finland in 1939? What happened is that NKVD agents shot Soviet border soldiers, border police. Soviets so that they would have, it was a false flag operation, so that they would have a justification to attack Finland. Even Hitler, when he did something similar in Poland, he shot some convicts who he dressed as guards. Stalin had no problem, he shot his own soldier. So does this mean that this is a false flag operation? I have zero idea. What I know is that we've seen this in the past, for whatever this is worth.
Right.
Was responsible for 9/11, immediately denounced Putin as a war criminal.
Sorry, I've lost count. That's another lie. He says that Bill Kristol said that Saddam did 9/11. I did some research. I didn't find any of this. I might be wrong. I'm just putting it on the table. Here's something else that could also be BS. Bill Kristol had horrible ideas about our foreign policy, but I've never heard him saying that Saddam did 9/11. So another thing which is a BS. Let's go.
Told us that Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11, immediately denounced Putin as a war criminal and even more savagely compared him to Donald Trump. The rest of the pundit class made similar, clearly coordinated noises. Putin did it! Putin did it! And their reasoning was simple. Putin is evil, and evil people do evil things purely for the dark joy of being evil.
Pause. This is literally true. We've seen it time and again in history. If someone thinks that there's any geopolitical clever thinking in Putin attacking Ukraine, please let me know. So, James, is it caricaturing of saying, yeah, sometimes evil people just do stupid things?
Stupid things. And evil is precisely the category of people who are prone to doing stupid things. Yes, sir.
And again, we could bring more examples. I mean, the whole strategy of the Nazis in Second World War was evil people doing stupid things, not only moral things, but stupid compared to their suggested aim, which was to win the war. So evil people doing evil things for no apparent reason is, anyone who has read history knows that.
Right. Yeah. Can we make sense out of Hitler and Stalin's decisions? Stalin at least survived World War II. But the point is, dictators often make suicidally stupid decisions. Yes, sir.
Yeah, if someone can explain to me why Stalin got rid of almost the entirety of his spying network, of his army, of his highest command just before the German invasion, if anyone can find me a good explanation of that, I don't know. You're the best historian of all times. Let's go.
In this specific case, Putin attacked himself, which is the most evil thing you can do, and therefore perfectly in character for a man that evil. That was their explanation. No one who's paid to cover these things seemed to entertain even the possibility it could have been the Ukrainians who did it. No chance of that. Ukraine, as you may have heard, is led by a man called Zelensky. And we can say for a dead certain fact that he was not involved. He couldn't have been. Zelensky is too decent for terrorism.
Pause. No one says that Zelensky is too decent for, quote, terrorism. By the way, when you're engaging a defensive war, anything goes. Anything goes. I wouldn't want Ukraine to do something stupid because the other side, the aggressor, has nuclear bombs. But let's be clear. The moral of the case is when you are attacked, anything is on the table and you should do whatever you can to win.
That's what I keep saying here. Even if it were true that the that Ukrainian government had some motive in destroying that bridge, I would be on their side if they thought it would hurt Russia. Now, it may have been not the wisest move. I consider the evidence, but the point is they were the victims of the invasion here. They have every right to fight back and to blow up pipelines, drone attack the Kremlin, you name it. Yes, sir. Wow.
Morally, it makes sense. Tactically, I've zero idea. I'm not a military expert, but morally, it makes sense.
Precisely.
So let's go.
Now, you see him on television, and it's true you might form a different impression. Sweaty and rat-like, a comedian turned oligarch, a persecutor of Christians, a friend of BlackRock.
Stop.
But don't believe.
If I was a person like Tucker Carlson, which means if I didn't care what immoral crap would come out of my mouth, I could say here that someone is rat-like, someone is in the pocket of the international capitalist class, and someone persecutes Christians. Does this remind you any caricature? But because I'm not that kind of person, I will just stick to the facts and not to my psychologizing interpretation. So, first of all, he's not persecuting Christians. This has to do with some actions that Ukraine took against parts of the Ukrainian church that has links with the Kremlin. And they think that they operate as the fifth phalanx of Russia. So again, I'm not expert in Ukrainian Orthodox Church stuff, but I know from Greece that it's not unusual that you can have different parts of the Orthodox Church, one being answerable to the one patriarch, the other to... Anyway, but what is not happening, Zelensky is not persecuting Christians. I mean, Ukraine is a Christian country. This would make zero sense.
It would make zero sense. Most of the population is Christian.
Also, why notice Putin being ex-KGB doesn't matter, but Zelensky being a former comedian suddenly matters. And also, I'm not sure he's like sweaty, rat-like. Again, I don't want to say this is dog whistle because I don't want to be that person who psychologizes, but I have no idea where this came from.
Putin is a monster. We know he kills people, murders people inside and out of his own country. He's not the rat. I mean, to call Zelensky a rat and to fail to call Putin a rat, I mean, again, we see what his motive is here. He's perfectly plain, it seems to me, in indicating where his the desired outcome of his analysis is going to be and where he's going to be at the end of the day. So, of course, he'll say whatever he needs to say, true or unsupported or speculative or whatever. Tucker's just saying Putin raw, Zelensky bad. Zelensky rat, Putin defender of Christianity. From this perspective, it's disgusting.
Again, people, this is like, what does he think about you, the viewer? Like someone who sells you such BS, what does he think about your mind? What does he think about your judgment? He's probably capitalizing on the fact that my viewers are morons. I would be offended if someone who I looked up to consider me a moron. Anyway, let's go.
Believe your own eyes. Actually, Mr. Zelensky is a very good man. The best, really. As George W. Bush once noted, he is our generation's Winston Churchill. Of all the people in the world, our shifty, dead-eyed Ukrainian friend...
So he's mocking the idea that Zelensky is our generation's Churchill. Notice, conservatives are the one that keep saying the modern liberal man is a soy boy, he's weak, he doesn't care about his country, and if things would get tough, he would run and hide. Here you have a leader who stands up for his country, who doesn't run and hide, and this guy is mocking him. So again, draw your conclusions. Either he was bullshitting you when he told you that where are the great men today, or he's bullshitting you now. But at some point, this guy is bullshitting you.
In the tracksuit is uniquely incapable of blowing up a dam. He's literally a living saint, a man in whom there is no sin. That's why
Who
Lindsey
said
Graham is so
Ukraine was a Jeffersonian liberal democracy? Whoever said that they were the ideal, a classical liberal state? No one has said that. The question is, who is the victim of the invasion here? And it's a compared to what thing here as well. And what Tucker is failing to do is put Putin on the same dock. Putin is the one. In fact, if you turn it around, by presenting it this way, he is whitewashing the Russian invasion. He is whitewashing Putin's evil. There's no other way of looking at it from my perspective.
Indeed. Let's go.
They're just two good people hanging out together and being good. And like all good people, when they meet in person, they spend a lot of time talking about killing people and laughing like friends do. Here's the pair last week.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying.
It's the best money we've ever spent.
Pause.
Thank you so much.
People, once you've seen this, you should never, ever again take Tucker Carlson seriously. This is a video that we've known for 10 days. It's edited. And not only it's edited, it's one thing. So there's never a dialogue that says Russians are dying. This is the best money we've spent. Actually, even the order is different. So the best money we've ever spent is when Zelensky says, thank you for your help earlier in the video. But here's the important thing. We've known this for 10 days. It takes 4 seconds of Googling to find that this is fake. And Tucker Carlson, 10 days later, throw this in your face and thinks that you are stupid enough to buy this. So this is a guy, Tucker Carlson is a guy. If he tells you today is Wednesday, you should go and check your calendar. I'm not believing this guy on anything. If this guy tells me now it's evening, I look out of the window because I don't believe him in anything.
No.
After this, this guy has lost all credibility. The whole world knows this is a lie, and he still throws it in your face.
What a vicious lie. He's saying he doesn't like Lindsey Graham. He doesn't like neoconservatives. And so he's long hated Lindsey Graham. Had a personal feud that he wouldn't even have him on his show. But he hates Lindsey Graham. But here he is smearing. And I'm not a fan of neoconservatives at all. On the other hand, he is smearing this guy as laughing and enjoying the idea of Russians dying. Wow. God damn lying Tucker Carlson.
Who sends the Russians to their death, by the way? It's Putin. But this guy is never to be criticized for Russian deaths. Incidentally, for anyone who talks about neoconservatives, the best, the most fierce, the most merciless criticism of neoconservatives has come from the objectivist milieu. Yaron has written about it. There are books, there are whole books about our criticism as a movement to neoconservatives. So this is not any sympathy for Lindsey Graham, although in this case, he's
being smeared viciously.
Yeah, he's being smeared, but not smear as something which might be or might not be. This is a blatant lie, and you can find it with 2 seconds of Googling. Let's go.
No,
The Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent, Graham says. A smile spreads across his thin, quivering lips as he forms the words. He looks like a starving man contemplating a breakfast buffet. The aroma of death has aroused Lindsey Graham. Thanks so much, replies Zelensky. He feels the same way.
This
There's
never
nothing
happened.
dark here. Just 2 middle-aged guys celebrating the killing of a population. They don't seem like the kind of people who'd enjoy flooding villages or starting a famine. And in any case,
incidentally, sorry, if there is one regime that knows how to start famines and use them, that's the regime that has been residing in the Kremlin. And again, Google Soviet Union famines, not once, twice.
Russia, Ukraine, famine. The guy can't put together, and Russia did the invasion. It's Russia that's killing their own people. If Russians are dying in Ukraine, it's Russia's fault. Good Lord, man.
Let's go.
It's really not your business. Your job is to support Ukraine. Watch Nikki Haley, a Republican candidate for president, explain this principle on CNN.
A win for Ukraine is a win for all of us. And for them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, That's just not the case. To say that we should stay neutral, it is in the best interest of America. It's in the best interest of our national security for Ukraine to win. We have to see this through. We have to finish it.
See? It's very easy to understand. It is vitally important for you to support Ukraine because it's necessary for Ukraine to be supported by you. Your support is mandatory.
That is not what she said.
That is not what she said, but you go
She said
on.
it is in America's interest. It was not tautological. Now, if you want to break down her argument, is it or is it not? He did not. He said, simply accuses her of using tautology in this regard, and that, again, misrepresents Nikki Haley's view on the subject. How much of Russia, or how much of Ukraine does Tucker think would be reasonable to give to Russia? How much of a reward for this invasion does he think would be appropriate to reward Putin with? Does he think that would have negative consequences? Apparently not. Nikki Haley was pointing out that we don't want Russia to win this because America's interests are opposed to that. It's not a tautology. And again, it's another disgusting smear.
And he says it is vital to support Ukraine. And the answer is yes. If you understand anything about morality, if you have one moral fiber in your body, yes, it is vital to support someone who's attacked. Now, I'm more than happy for someone to tell me we shouldn't send a single penny. I can discuss this. But first, let's agree. Who is the good guy here? Who is the bad guy here? Who deserves our moral support? Who deserves our moral condemnation? And then we can discuss whether we should send a single pound or money or aid or whatever. But first, make the moral claim. Tucker doesn't make the moral claim. Actually, he does. And he says that Putin is a good guy because there is no moral neutrality in such cases.
Right.
Until it's finished, whatever it is and whatever that means. So shut up and support Ukraine or else you're in trouble. Back when they still taught logic, statements like this were known as tautologies. Something is true because it is. The more you repeat it, the truer it becomes. It's a self-reinforcing reality. There was a time when tautologies were considered illegitimate arguments, not to mention hilariously stupid. Only dumb people talk like that. Now everybody in power talks like that. Diversity is our strength. Trans women are women. Zelensky is Churchill. It's all self-evidently true.
Okay, notice here, he's throwing two things. It's like you're talking to, again, to completely people who are beyond stupid. He's throwing two things that he thinks people will react to. Oh yeah, I don't like diversity, or trans women are women, something doesn't. And then Zelensky is Churchill, as if all this is like, yeah. James, what's your comment?
It's simply disgusting what he's doing here. It really is disgusting. Talk about hilariously stupid. What he's saying is hilariously stupid. That's all I can say.
And again, but this goes back to the idea that supporting Ukraine is part of the current thing. So they're telling you, the people who are wrong about how they talk about transgender issues, for example, are telling you that Ukraine is right. This is how a tribalist thinks. He says, not what is the truth out there. It's like, what do the people that I don't like tell me? Then the opposite must be true. You are a second hundred then. You're not looking reality. You're looking at the group and what's the party line. Even worse, you're looking to the group that you hate so that you get the party line on how you will approach the Russian-Ukraine war.
Right. I mean, the fact that Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley support seems to be the real motivation behind Tucker's opposition. That's disgusting.
That's literally, and they actually tell you, like, how can you be with the people that Biden supports? Well, because I think for myself. I don't wait to see what.
Sometimes that's going to happen. Guess what? Yeah. Talk about hilariously stupid, as I say.
Let's go.
An explanation and don't ask questions. Sound familiar? Of course it does. That's the pap they're serving us day after day in steaming, lumpy portions. By this point, it's possible that American citizens are the least informed people in the world. Your average...
Yes, stop. We live in a time that you can go on Twitter and see Tucker Carlson. You can go to Fox and watch Hannity. You can go to YouTube and watch the Yaron Brook show. You can go to InfoWars and watch Alex Jones. You can watch CNN. You can watch whatever you want. You can even watch Dugin and whatever they say in Russia. So what he's actually telling you is you don't know how to think. You're all stupid. This used to be, and still is, the usual criticism of the left. Oh, the masses are stupid. The masses don't get it. The masses cannot think for themselves. So what BS the left used to throw you 20 years ago, now you get it from Tucker Carlson. Well done.
Pakistan knows who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. It's obvious. Does he think some skinny dude in a dress is actually a girl? Come on. That idea would never occur to him. You've got to be lied to at full volume over a period of years in order to reach conclusions like that. And of course, we have been. The media lie. They do. But mostly they just ignore the stories that matter. What's happened to the hundreds of billions of US dollars we've sent to Ukraine? No clue. Who organized those BLM riots 3 years ago? No one's gotten to the bottom of that. What exactly happened on 9/11? Well, it's still classified. How did Jeffrey Epstein make all that money? How did he die? How about JFK? And so endlessly on.
Pause.
How many
What happened? Let's
jam into one little. Wow. And
let's take them one at a time. Let's take them one at a time. What happens to the money we send in Ukraine? What does Tucker think that it happens? He thinks that Zelensky is using this money for parties in yachts with prostitutes and cocaine. Like, what is his theory about what happens to the money we send in Ukraine? What's the mystery that I'm missing here and is hidden from me by the powers to be? Next question. Who organized the BLM protests? No one. No one. Unfortunately, we live in a culture where people cannot think clearly, where you have the racism of the traditional racism, but also you have the progressive racial thinking. And this was a self-perpetuated narrative. People jumped on that narrative in the summer of 2020, and not only then. We were the first to criticize it. The first Daily Objective was about the protests of 2020. But there was no dark force behind them.
He assumes that there's some sinister organizing force behind it all. That's odd, isn't it? And besides, what does and again, it's using the enemy of my enemy logic, right? What do the BLM riots have to do with this? It's two separate things altogether. But of course, he does have this dark, sinister conspiracy attitude about all of this, which is remarkable. It becomes this giant package deal. Since the media has lied to us, everything the media tells you is a lie. Well,
Which
okay.
is the line of the leftist postmodernists, by the way, that there is no truth and there can be no truth. And what about the 9/11? So what happened in 9/11 that I'm missing? It was not terrorist. Who was it? The Democrats? Who was it? Like,
George
am I
Bush
missing something?
was it I've read all kinds of conspiracy nonsense about 9/11, that George W. Bush himself wanted to start a war with the, Muslim world, and therefore he was behind 9/11. I've heard that nonsense. How many times have we heard that crap?
I believe that crap. I was the number one 9/11 truther because I hated the United States as a leftist. I did a whole episode on that. But here's the thing. Why doesn't he tell us? Apparently, someone is hiding us the truth. Why isn't he telling us? If he knows that it wasn't Al-Qaeda, hey, Tucker, you're now on Twitter. Elon Musk is retweeting you. Just tell us the truth, since you know something that we don't.
And apparently he knows something about the Kennedy assassination. Now, I know that there are still classified documents, and you can argue about the classified documents. You'd argue about following up on where the money is going. Okay. But the point is, he's putting this in some dark, sinister terms, as if we all know and can assume that there's some conspiracy that we're not aware of behind 9/11, the Kennedy assassination, you name it. And how much can he jam in vague conspiracy, connotations into 10 seconds. You may have set a record there as well.
We are here in Alex Jones territory, but Alex Jones has this voice. It's like it's entertainment value if you completely block off the context, because I wouldn't even say everyone knows with Alex Jones says ridiculous things, because apparently there are many on the right who don't think so. But here I think it's even worse. It's even more dangerous than Alex Jones. But let's go.
Not only are the media not interested in any of this, they are actively hostile to anybody who is. In journalism, curiosity is the gravest crime. Yesterday, for example, a former Air Force officer who worked for years in military intelligence came forward as a whistleblower to reveal that the U.S. government has physical evidence of crashed non-human-made aircraft, as well as the bodies of the pilots who flew those aircraft. The Pentagon has spent decades studying these otherworldly remains in order to build more technologically advanced weapons systems. Okay, that's what the former intel officer revealed, and it was clear he was telling the truth.
Pause.
In other words,
And it is clear he was telling the truth.
He was telling the truth. He's absolutely certain that they have alien craft and alien bodies. Wow.
It is clear he was telling the truth. So again, if I tell you that I have an opinion on what is happening with the UFO research, I would be bullshitting you. But you know when I'm not bullshitting you, when I'm telling you, I don't know. This guy is telling you that he knows that this whistleblower says the truth. How does he know? By the way, James,
we were having the discussion the other day about life in outer space. As you know, I'm not in the arbitrary, I'm in the possible camp. So I'm open to the idea that there's a life in outer space and that there's intelligent life in outer space. But the point is, he seems to think that it's perfectly clear that this one whistleblower is telling us the truth, and that the government has alien biology out there and alien technology out there they're not telling us about. Wow is all I can say.
The government that is losing from the Taliban has UFO technology. That's where we are.
Okay, wow. And he did that on a show. When he had his Fox News show on primetime, he would bring up all this UFO stuff even before this whistleblower. Apparently, he believed we'd been visited by aliens with clarity even before this whistleblower.
Although, to be honest, I wouldn't. I think even if the United States had the extraterrestrial technology, they would still be crap at wars because they don't understand when you should fight a war and how you should fight a war when it is necessary. So I take back the comment that they're losing for the Taliban. They could still be losing even with extraterrestrial technology. Let's go.
Words, UFOs are actually real, and apparently so is extraterrestrial life. Now we know. In a normal country, this news would qualify as a bombshell, the story of the millennium. But in our country, it doesn't. The whistleblower's account ran on a technology website called The Debrief, which you've probably never heard of. The Washington Post had that story, but decided not to run it. The New York Times, meanwhile, defended.
What if they thought that this story is not credible? What if they thought that, you know what? So you think that someone would have the story that there are aliens, that there's verified alien life, and they would hide it, and this story would appear in a random blog? I mean, maybe, but does it sound reasonable to you to believe? Like, all these people are power hungry and money hungry, but they're sitting on the most breakthrough story in the history, and they would say, nah, let's not publish it because we're going to piss off the powers to be.
It's an incoherent conspiracy theory.
Let's go.
That's all I can say.
The New York Times, meanwhile, just pretended it never happened. On the front page of the New York Times website this morning, there were 5 stories about Ukraine, as well as 4 stories apiece about Donald Trump, trans people, and climate change, the usual lineup. There was nothing at all about how an alien species is flying hypersonic aircraft over our cities. Not one word.
Alex Jones territory. Let's
So
go.
Maybe the New York Times needs some verification. Maybe the Washington Post wants some corroboration for this witness before they run with the story. That's what good journalism would require. Some corroborative evidence, some verification at least, before you go spouting off and telling people about it. A responsible journalism is, I guess, what he doesn't practice and what he doesn't want others to practice.
Dysfunctional, this is a big part of the reason. Nobody knows what's happening. A small group of people control access to all relevant information, and the rest of us don't know. We're allowed to yap all we want about it.
This is leftist BS. Even like the old left would say the capital is controlling information. The new left would say no one can know anything. This guy has managed to put together the old left narrative that the capital is controlling with a new left narrative that no one knows everything and has created a salad mixing the two of them.
Brilliant observation. He's doing both. Exactly.
Yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens. If you keep it up, they'll make you be quiet. Trust us. That's how they maintain control.
By the way, sorry. Tucker Carlson has the most viewed show on Fox. He's made millions and millions and millions and millions, and he's watched by tens of millions on Twitter. But he thinks there's a conspiracy of silence. If there was no conspiracy of silence, what would happen? Like there would be a Tucker Carlson, like a 3D thing in my room, yapping in my ears. He's like he's everywhere. Where is this conspiracy of theory? They've sure,
if there is a conspiracy of silence, they've sure done a poor job at shutting up Tucker Carlson.
Let's go.
When Western tourists first started traveling in large numbers to the Soviet Union in the early 1970s, they found that many Russians had a completely warped understanding of the United States. They thought that Americans lived in grinding poverty, in a state of perpetual race war, and were desperate to flee to the freedom and prosperity of the Eastern Bloc. They thought this because that's what they had been told. They had no way to know otherwise. The few Russians who understood what was really going on in the rest of the world had learned about it from listening to shortwave radio broadcasts, sometimes under the covers so the neighbors wouldn't hear. 50 years later, it is bewildering to consider the ironies here. We're the ones who live in ignorance now. The US
yeah,
government...
that's the last, that's, okay, that's, after that, he's making his outro, who says, we are this voice of freedom. So it's absolutely ridiculous to compare the situation in Soviet Union, where you had one source of information, and if you used any other source of information, you would find yourself in the good years, in the latest year, just in prison, in the bad years, in the torture chamber, and in the gulag. And to say it's the same, again, he's talking about an era where he's the most watched opinion maker, perhaps in the United States, if not in the world. And he claims that we live to something similar in the Soviet Union. This is embarrassing. It reminds me the left who talk about genocide of minorities or this hyperbole, which is embarrassment to history.
Talk about the ironies piling up. He is oblivious to the ironies of his own freedom, his own popularity, the access that everyone has to him, that millions upon millions of people have to him through Twitter, which he himself wants to see go down with antitrust laws, by the way. And so he's using this evil social media platform. He hates big tech. Evil big tech. Tucker Carlson has been a major theme of his. So talk about piling up the ironies upon ironies. Here is Tucker Carlson reaching tens of millions of people using Twitter, a platform he would have had broken up with antitrust laws, and getting it out, and completely oblivious to the fact that that makes the situation just a skosh different than censorship under the Soviet Union. Truly bizarre.
Indeed. Okay, let's see what the people are saying. First of all, from last time, a big thank you to Vos Art. You sent the super chat last time, and I just saw it today. So for today, a big thank you to Jonathan Honing. He sends his support twice. Many thanks to Bonnie. Jeff wishes happy birthday to Airs UK. Thank you. Again, thanks to Jeff. Thanks to Gail. Thanks to Jonathan. So let's hear from adherent of Lady Columbia with $5. The only thing we can be certain of is that the German industrial base with Nord Stream is dead. They're shipping an entire chemical factory to Louisiana. So Germany has done all sorts of mistakes when it comes to their energy policy, the biggest one being closing down their nuclear stations. But again, whether this has anything to do with blowing up the Nord Stream, if I tell you that I have an opinion, that would be arbitrary. And the same person, our friend, says, people are afraid to say I don't know because it's been toxically paired with the notion of being an idiot in total. But actually, the reasonable thing is when you don't know, you don't know. I can tell you a lot of things about basketball and football. I don't know anything about tennis. If I ever give you an opinion about tennis, you should say, this guy is selling me BS. Let's see what's else. Thank you very much, Irene, for your contribution. Thank you, Free Trade, for your contribution. Thank you. We're glad you find value in the content. Razi says, now we know in which Peikoff's category Tucker Carlson puts the alien statement. This is an inside joke for the members of ARCUK. And if you watched last episode we did with Razi, you know the inside joke. And many thanks to Robert for his contribution. So my final thoughts, James, is this. That, again, I would be very much offended if I were a viewer of Tucker Carlson, because I would say, this guy thinks I'm a moron. Tucker Carlson thinks his viewers are idiots. And people who believe him prove him wrong.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Tucker really never had...
prove him right. Prove him right. It's like, yeah, give us more of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, I've never really had much of a high opinion of Tucker Carlson, but I think he has reached a new low here. If he was bad before, he's god awful now. And he'll just say whatever crap is convenient for his own narrative. Apparently, he will suck up every a peripheral piece of conspiracy crap that he can collect on the way too, just to add into it. So no, I think his credibility ought to be shattered, and is at this point, to any reasonable observer, completely shattered.
And again, the point is not that we disagree with him. The point is that he's saying blatant lies, things that you can figure out it's a lie with 5 seconds of Googling. So, and again, this shows the quality of the man. He doesn't care. He just doesn't care. Because he probably thinks also that his audience doesn't care, and his audience has been divorced from any notion of truth. Anyway, that's it. Today was super fun. We can do more of this kind of episodes, because it's also a good exercise in thinking. Although today didn't require much critical thinking.
No, it did. I didn't find myself being pressed too hard with the brain cells there.
Indeed. But a big thank you to James, because James got a late notice about this topic. We had planned a different topic, but he jumped on board and he was eager to do this. So a thank you from our behalf. And many thanks to our viewers who contributed, those of you who watched. All the best, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.